So I just finished Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and Knuckles the Echidna 3 and Knuckles featuring Knuckles the Echidna. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is a pretty good game. I think that it definitely represents an improvement over Sonic 1, but not a huge improvement. I mean, I liked Sonic 1 quite a bit. I thought it was a very good game. I think that that a lot of the people, you know, who go on about, oh, Sonic was never good, I think that a lot of them just don't really, like, understand the series and haven't put a lot of real, genuine thought into their criticisms and looked at the game in a fair and critical manner. I think that a lot of the criticism surrounding the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, a lot of it's really dumb. I mean, like, because this franchise has a lot of easy targets, obviously, you know, you got things like Sonic 06 and Shadow the Hedgehog and Sonic Boom, which, like, you know, obviously those games are terrible, like, you can't deny that, and, you know, they're very easy to pick apart and explain why they're bad, because there's so many aspects of them that are just so obviously dumb. Like, you know, you look at the game and you think, why would it be made this way? Why would you ever do this? This is obviously a terrible decision. And I think that having those easy targets has kind of led people into thinking that, that because of the fact that they were able to criticize those games well, they can then criticize other Sonic games well, but that's not the case, because the only reason that they can criticize those games so well is because all the problems are so obvious. Other Sonic games have a lot more subtlety to their design, well, sometimes. You know, obviously you can't make a blanket statement, but I would say that the Genesis games definitely have a lot of little subtle aspects of their designs that, you know, push you in one way or the other, and that a lot of people probably don't notice or put a lot of thought into. On the other hand, the Adventure series has a lot of flagrantly terrible things, the same way that, say, Sonic 06 does, but they don't seem to as often be used as a punching bag. There seemed to have been like a little pocket for a little while there, like a little pocket industry of YouTubers talking shit about Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2, but that seems to have already died off, and there wasn't much of it before that. I don't know, for some reason there's people still seem to view Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2 as competent games when I mean, you know, in my opinion at least, they're anything but. But let's not get too far off topic here. The point is, I think Sonic the Hedgehog for the Genesis is a much maligned game by a lot of very, like, public-facing personalities. You know, it certainly has a large and dedicated fan base, but that large and dedicated fan base is not, generally speaking, people with platforms. That large and dedicated fan base is just people on forums and people making fan games and, you know, that kind of thing. It's not games journalists, it's not people who have, you know, YouTube channels, at least not big YouTube channels. It's not people who have, you know, a very, like, large public platform where they can make their voices heard. So there's this meme that Sonic the Hedgehog 1 was never a good game, and that the old Sonic games are just as bad as the new ones, really, which they fucking aren't. I mean, there's also an equivalent, like, I don't know if I would call it a meme exactly, but there's also this equivalent idea that, like, even the Boost games aren't very good, which I disagree with. I can understand the criticisms being leveled, and I think that they're a lot fairer than the ones leveled towards the Genesis games, which is why I hesitated to call it a meme as well earlier. Like make no mistake, I don't think that a lot of the criticism leveled towards the Genesis games is fair or in any way correct. You know, I think that a lot of the criticism leveled towards the Genesis games is just stupid fucking memes that just get repeated, and this is meme in, like, the classical sense of the word, of just, like, an idea that exists to propagate itself, which really all ideas are like that, but I guess I'm using it as an emphatic, you know, where, like, I'm emphasizing this idea in particular rather than surviving on, like, the actual merit of the idea is just propagating itself in a manner akin to, say, a virus. But yeah, I think that you know, there have been, like, legitimate criticisms made toward the Boost games, and while I still like them a lot, I can at least respect a lot of the criticism towards them. I don't feel that way about a lot of the criticism towards the Genesis games. Not to say that they're flawless games, they are not by any means, but almost nobody is talking about the actual flaws. Most people are repeating bullshit like, oh, Sonic's supposed to be about going fast, but you can't go fast right away, there's stuff that gets in the way. Because, you know, it's not like video games are are interactive systems that are designed to hinder the player in certain ways so as to make it that much more satisfying when they succeed. You know, that's dumb. You know, obviously every game you can just immediately pick it up and do exactly what you're supposed to be doing in it without any need to learn the systems or figure out how to deal with tricky placements on the maps or anything like that. You know, you pick up Bayonetta and you're just instantly just destroying angels. Like, they don't even stand a chance. You know, it's, you know, you just run right in and you just bash them up and you don't think about it, right? Anyway, geez, that's a big tangent for the start of this video, but the point is, Sonic 1, I like it. It's also a heavily flawed game. You know, in particular, you got levels like Marble Zone and Labyrinth Zone, which even though I did, well, okay, I didn't enjoy Labyrinth Zone, but even though I did enjoy Marble Zone, they really are levels that very much mishandle what Sonic is supposed to be, you know? In Marble Zone and Labyrinth Zone, the whole thing of, oh, you can't go fast in a Sonic, like, it's actually true in those zones. Because in most zones in a Sonic game, if you learn the layout and you figure out how to do stuff well, then you can just blast straight through it and not give a fuck about anything, and just shoot on through because you know where everything's gonna be, you know when to jump, you know when to duck, you know when to do whatever, and it's cool. Even playing optimally, Marble Zone just is not, it's a slow level, you know, because there's a lot of areas where you're just forced to slowly move across lava and that kind of thing. And the same goes for Labyrinth Zone, particularly since it's, a lot of it's underwater. So, you know, you got these problems, you know, it's a good game, but it is heavily flawed, and Sonic 2 does iterate and does fix some of those flaws. Most noticeably, I almost like got too repetitive there. That's something I try to avoid. But yeah, most notably, it significantly improves the movement physics. Sonic takes a lot less time to get up to speed now, and it just feels a lot smoother and a lot more controllable than Sonic 1 did. Sonic 1 had a very tank-like, or not even tank-like exactly, but he had a very heavy feel to him. He had a lot of momentum, which is to say it takes a long time to slow down to a stop and it takes a long time to speed up to a run. You know, he feels like he has a lot of inertia, and I feel that the inertia was somewhat lessened in Sonic 2, not to the point where he doesn't feel like he has any, but enough to where it actually feels a lot more manageable and it feels a lot better to play. Also, the level design, I think, is a lot better. It makes much better uses of slopes and those sorts of things to really play to the strengths of Sonic's moveset and give the player lots of options for how they want to approach gaining speed and maintaining it. In particular, you know, particularly compared to Sonic 1, which I felt had some very weak level design in certain areas, where it almost felt like it just, like, used slopes as a means to have a fast set piece, rather than as like a legitimate piece of level design. I don't know, maybe I'm not making much sense there, but that's kind of how I see it. And then when it's not doing a fast bit where you're going down a slope, I think that Sonic 1's level design was a little bit too platformery, so to speak, because, you know, the early Sonic games aren't really platformers per se. I mean, they are games about moving and jumping, which I guess is what a platformer is, but I guess what I should say is they're not traditional platformers. They're not like, say, Mario, where it's where the focus is meant to be like on precision jumping and that kind of thing. Sonic is all about momentum. It's not about precisely landing on a specific spot. It is about correctly responding to stimulus in order to build and maintain speed and keep yourself moving forward. So the fact that a lot of the Sonic 1 level design shied away from that and instead tried to be more of just a platformer game like your Mario's or your whatever, where you just gotta kinda jump from thing to thing and do it right, just not super great in my opinion. But I think that Sonic 2 did a lot better in this regard, at least early on it did. I think that it plays a lot more to the character's strengths in terms of his moveset and in terms of his movement. Also, the sprite work has gotten noticeably better. I think that it's just a better looking game overall. I think it has an even stronger aesthetic direction than Sonic 1 did, which is saying something, because Sonic 1 already had a very strong aesthetic direction. I mean, that's kind of why the character has stuck around so long. Like, the first games were good, but a lesser character design would not have survived through the trash heaps that he would later fling himself into. And in fact, even as good as the first games were, I doubt that they would have been as popular were it not for the fact that they just have incredibly strong aesthetic direction. You know, they're good-looking games that really sell you on like a style, you know, on this kind of edgy 90s surrealist style. Very, very cool stuff. And yeah, I think Sonic 2 does it really well, makes it look very pretty, makes it look very detailed, and just nice to look at all the time. I think the game also feels like a little bit less bullshit. It feels like there's a little bit less of that, here, deal with this, without any time to deal with it. That still is there. It is still it is still an early Sonic game. They hadn't quite figured out that they should probably just avoid that altogether, but there's less of it. For the most part. That kind of falls apart towards the end of the game when they toss you into the final level where you have to fight 2 bosses in a row with no rings. Yeah, that's fucking bullshit. Like, that is just straight up bullshit. I am not at all ashamed to admit that I save scummed my way through that, because fuck that. Other than that, I mean, I would say that the game does kind of front load its difficulty. Or not its difficulty, its quality levels. Like, I think that the level design gets progressively weaker as it goes on in the game, and as it becomes more platformer focused, which, you know, we all know how I just ranted about that a little bit ago. But yeah, I think that the really good levels are the really early levels. So you get this good first impression, but the further you get into the game, the more it just kind of drags, and you just don't give a shit anymore. At least that was my experience. And obviously it doesn't help that the last level is just fucking bullshit. Also, I think that it feels kind of less memorable overall than Sonic 1, and I think that the reason for that is because of the fact that it's like a faster and smoother game. Like, you just kind of blast through everything, and you don't like slow down and take it all in as much as Sonic 1 did. This isn't exactly a criticism, because I think that this is just kind of a natural result of iterating on the series and, you know, and streamlining it in a way that you spend less time standing around waiting for shit. Like, I don't think that this is a problem per se, it's just something I noticed. But yeah, overall I think it's a really good iterative sequel to Sonic 1. It's nothing groundbreaking by any means, but there's a lot of good stuff here, there's a lot to like. It's a good game overall, and it's definitely a good sequel. Overall, I think that I would probably give it, on my Rosen meter here, let's say an 8 out of 10. It'll be great. You know, it's good stuff. It's a good sequel, and it does good for itself, and I respect it. Now, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, on the other hand, oh man, Sonic 3 and Knuckles is a truly groundbreaking Sonic sequel. Like, this game fixes pretty much all of my problems that I have early on in the series. It's much less like precision platforming focused and much more flow focused. It is constantly just using slopes and other momentum oriented mechanics and level design elements to test you and see if you really know that much about keeping moving. Sonic 3 and Knuckles is a very, very strong series. Like, it just fantastic level design. I really can't think of a single level in that game that I don't like, that I think drags on in the way that, say, Labyrinth Zone did. I think that all of the levels in this game are at least decent. None of them, I would say, hurt the overall experience. I also noticed that it really changed, like, the feel of the Sonic game. Because in the first 2 games, like, it's very much just a pure gameplay, hop in and go run around kind of thing, you know? There's not, like, a cutscene for the most part. You know, I think there's there's a couple cutscenes in Sonic 1 and 2, but it's not like a major thing, and I don't think neither of them opens on one. Sonic 3 and Knuckles opens on a cutscene, and throughout the game, there's lots of set pieces and little spectacles and cutscenes and that sort of thing. Which I think actually really helps the series. I think that Sonic is at its best when it's trying to be a big, cool spectacle, assuming that it doesn't obviously give up, you know, gameplay stability for the sake of that, which this one doesn't. It's got very good gameplay. So you know, when you've got solid gameplay like this, like, yeah, throw on some spectacles, throw on some cool shit that I can just watch happen to catch my breath in between levels. You know, sure, why not create a lovingly detailed, beautiful jungle environment and then burn it all to the ground in between levels and have me run through the fucking burning, charred remains. Very cool game. I think that it also improved the physics a little bit more, although I would say that it's in a more nebulous way to where I can't even really describe what's better about it exactly. It just feels slightly better, like very, very slightly. I mean, Sonic 2 already just about perfected the Sonic physics, so, you know, there's not that much more they could do. It also introduced some new types of shields, which have different jump effects. You know, you can double jump with one of them, you can bounce with one, you can blast forward in the air with one. Very cool stuff. It's also really long, since it's, you know, kind of 2 games, sort of. A lot of levels. And they all have really cool and unique and interesting ideas in them. There isn't one that, like, feels fillery in the way that, say, you know, in Sonic 1, when you're in the last zone and then he just, like, drops you back into a palette-swapped version of Labyrinth Zone. Yeah, tell me that wasn't filler, you know? There's nothing like that in this game. There's nothing that feels reused and fillery. Also, the bonus game, Blue Sphere, very good. I like it a lot. I think it's a lot of fun, and it, again, is a very cool spectacle. Yeah, just Sonic 3 A+, very good game. A strong contender for the best Sonic game. I think that I like Sonic Mania a little bit more, but it is really neck and neck with Sonic 3 and Knuckles, because this game is very close to being as good as Sonic Mania. Pretty much, like, Sonic Mania, basically just takes it in some different directions that are not necessarily better or worse, but that I just happen to like better. But overall, I think that Sonic 3 and Knuckles and Sonic Mania are on pretty similar levels of quality. They both have incredibly strong level design, they both have really refined mechanics, they're both just excellent games overall. I can't even think of, like, a serious problem that I have with Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Like, you know, I'm not saying it's a flawless game or anything, just that there's nothing that's coming to mind. Like, there's nothing that I remember as being a problem when I was playing it. I was just having fun, man. Very good game. In fact, so good that I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10, and everything was lovely once again. Wonderful. Very good game. Very highly recommend you check it out. Both of these games, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles, can be picked up on Steam for $5 a piece. It is a Genesis emulator, which means that you could be dealing with some slowdown kind of issues, which wouldn't be happening if it were a native port, because frankly, if you don't have a PC that could run Sonic 3 and a natively ported Sonic 3 and Knuckles in 2017, why are you here? Why are you here? But no, it's a decent enough emulator. There's nothing particularly wrong with it. I didn't notice any emulation glitches or anything like that. It's a functional emulator. It just doesn't have the convenience and quality of life features that a proper port would have, like, say, the Sonic CD port has. But overall, it's worth the $5 per game. Go check them out. Go play them. I very highly recommend them. Hey, did you enjoy listening to me talk about video games just now? Well, you can listen to more of this sultry voice in that playlist over to the left. While you're at it, consider tossing me some money on Patreon so I might eventually be able to quit my job and spend all my time talking about video games. Maybe I'll even finish another scripted video, who knows?